Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode, the first of two in these 2 days of the Red Wave Report, the official podcast of fsbulldogs.com. I am your host, Scott W. Johnston, as always, alongside Spidey himself, Josh Webb. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing quite well. How are you doing today, sir?
Oh, good. Just settling into, the post-holiday lull and kind of enjoying it. It's good to not have things be so crazy for once, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. It's even though it's about to get crazy.
Yeah, especially with this time of year. It's recruiting time, huh?
Yeah, recruiting time, it's about to get crazy. We're in the middle of a dead period right now, and that's going to end here in about 6 days. And then this is when schools are going to be making their final push for recruits and try and get them in before NSD there I believe that first Wednesday in February. So things are really, really taking off, and we're trying to get some updates and touch base with some recruits. It's a little slow going right now. Obviously, a lot of these kids have just started back up school, or many of them are making that final push for grades to become eligible to sign their national letter of intent. So, I mean, I hate to say stuff like that, but it is true. I mean, some of these kids got to make that final push, get grades up, or fell behind. And to be honest, it's just a busy time in school when you get back in there. So,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, anybody who's ever been back to that first winter break after, of college, especially if you were ever on the quarter system, like I was at the university, we had that month off.
Right.
From like the end of November, like December was completely off, and then there was always like that first week back in January that stuff just moves slower than crap. I mean, it's just a wow, this day is never gonna end.
Yep.
Because you've just been out of school or out of the habit of doing things for so long, and so there's an adjustment period, and hopefully we'll have a lot more information on some of these recruits here in the next week. But we have
Right.
we have started to get in touch with them, but we will obviously have that stuff for you soon.
Yeah, I completely understand. I mean, State was never on the quarter system. There was plans to put them on the quarter system, but then the economy kind of tanked, so the money wasn't there, which I'm kind of glad about, because I thought dealing with a semester worth of classes and stuff was a lot. It can be a lot sometimes, and don't know how I would have fared in the quarter system, but
Honestly, everybody has I'm going to kill some impressions about the quarter, or maybe some misconceptions about the quarter.
This is how little information is going on right now.
Just yeah. Well, no, because I mean, I think it's funny because this does pertain to college athletics. And,
right.
We can talk about Jimbo Fisher's comments about the new playoffs, but I was actually commenting on this yesterday. So here, let me make this about football. Here's a fun fact for next year. When USC and Fresno meet to open the season, get this, Fresno State will have been in classes for 12 days when they meet.
Okay.
Now, with the very next week, when USC goes to Stanford is still 16 days away from the first class.
Yeah.
But Stanford ends 10 days before Fresno State does.
Wow.
Stanford finishes up on December 12th. Fresno State finishes classes December 22nd. And I find this entirely amusing because people are saying, oh, it's the kids. The poor kids. They can never adapt to this poor system. First and foremost, like, people aren't even on the same schedules. So to throw out a blanket statement like the kids will suffer, it's like, dude, first of all, half these kids won't even be in school when we're talking about playing these games.
Right.
Which I always used to laugh at that playoff argument way back when, because when I was at Cal State, we had that month off, and I'm like, what the hell are you guys talking about? Who's going to miss out on anything during this month?
Right.
Like, there would actually be something to do. Because right when I came back from school, I always remember that first week of school sucked because I always had that one night class that conflicted with me being able to watch the BCS national title game. And I'd always ditch that class to go watch the BCS national title game.
Yeah.
So my thought process behind this whole thing is, how is this really going to affect the kids moving forward? It didn't make any sense to me because I was completely unaffected by the layoff. And I'm actually a student that did really, really well in school. So if me over here, who's, I'm not saying that athletes don't care, but, if I'm over here treating this thing as an academic, which I was, at the time I was shooting for my PhD, and I still do have my master's, but I was approaching this like, I'm going to ride this whole thing out. A lot different from how athletes do it. Many athletes, some will go on and get graduate degrees, but for the most part, they're in it 4 years, and let's see where this takes me.
Right.
And if it wasn't affecting me, and I was a very serious student, then I can't imagine how it was going to affect other people.
Right.
Like how little it would not affect them.
Well, you talk about that first week, and it may be slow in terms of time passing, but I just remember, especially for me, just having tons of errands to do, just getting everything set up. In fact, one spring semester, I think it was like my junior or senior semester. I think it was my junior semester. I needed like 12 units to stay on my parents' health insurance, right? And somehow my schedule got screwed up and I wasn't able to add one more class. So for like the first week, I was frantically trying to find something to fill out my schedule so I could keep my health insurance. And I just remember sitting in a counselor's office like for I think an hour or two one day, just like going over like any class to fulfill this specific requirement that wasn't full.
For the most part, when people, all right, so kind of getting back to how this works, is that the quarter system, everybody's like, I don't know how I would do that. But, all right, so you have 10 weeks, right? That's the quarter system. You can go 10 weeks. You get in, you get out. But let's be real. You go to class like you're 2-3 times a week, and honestly, in the quarter system, for the first couple of classes, they kick you out early. So there's not, like, you only actually learn stuff about 8 weeks out of the 10. And honestly, it's not that they cram it, like, you don't learn what you'd learn in a semester in a quarter. And I think that that's what a lot of people go with. They're like thinking that, we cover all these topics. And maybe to some extent you do, but the quarter system just finds think of it as an offense on the field. The quarter system takes the personnel that it has and it creates an offense that works. How can I get the most amount of this particular topic into 8 weeks?
Right.
Counting the days that you're going to have off within the quarter system. And so as I was sort of looking at this in relation to what Jimbo Fisher, which if you didn't catch it, I mean, a lot of it was just, how is this going to play out with the student athletes at the next level? They're worried that with this playoff system that, it's going to keep kids distracted from their work and this, that, and the other.
No.
But if you're following anything that Sarah Ganem is reporting from CNN over there about UNC, clearly they weren't learning a damn thing before the playoff. And this is when you're talking about what's going on at North Carolina, all right, first of all, disclaimer, I am a Duke fan. But that being said, North Carolina is an absolutely elite institution. Inasmuch as I'm a Trojan guy, and don't, really care for UCLA on Saturdays. I've never once said that UCLA is a crappy school. I don't rail on UCLA's credentials because I think it's an absolutely fine institution. They, trade back and forth with USC in the USA Weekly News, the national rankings and all that jazz. And sort of when you're looking at what's going on at North Carolina, which I believe is a top 25 institution, most of the schools in the ACC are.
Right.
And you're looking at this sort of stuff, I'm hard pressed to believe that the lack of education that these people are getting at what's supposedly an elite institution like North Carolina is really going to be all that much more affected at the football level, where, to be honest, we've had far more academic scandals come out of the football world, right? I mean, we had that whole Ohio State TV VCR programming thing.
I mean,
that was an ESPN some odd years back.
Right.
There was the Alabama textbook scandal that got them the same probation, similar sanctions to what USC currently has,
right.
So on and so forth. I mean, we've had our fair share of academic scandals.
Although, although I guess it wasn't academics, but don't talk about scandals in Fresno State, because everybody remembers what happened during the Tarkanian years with Fresno State basketball.
I don't think USC fans are anybody. They're like, hey, man, that stuff's over and done with. I don't want to hear about it right now.
Right.
But, I mean, the point of all of this is that there are no shortage of academic scandals that have followed college football around. If anything, they're magnified because there's more money in the sport. And so really what I think you're getting at, and honestly what college football ought to be asking themselves is in my opinion, what body bag games can we do away with that we can replace with games that have more meaning in value?
Right.
Like why is it that we need to get rid of the part of the year? Why is it, when we're talking about this playoff thing, why is it that the part of the year that we need to get rid of is the one that clearly defines which team was the best? Why is that the part that we need to get rid of, but the part that we need to keep are the games against Citadel and Savannah State, where we've had running clocks and screw it, the weather's just too bad, we're not even going to finish it. I don't know. The whole thing is just curious to me. But, I mean, certainly Jimbo Fisher can say anything he wants after knocking off the SEC for 7 straight titles.
Right.
How awesome was that game?
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about that. The end of the BCS National Championship game, I mean, really...
Third best BCS national title game. Third best.
Some of the closest football, definitely in college football, that I've seen in a while. But, I mean, the scoring was pretty slow for the first 3 quarters, and then all of a sudden it's like the floodgates opened, and it really picked up in the fourth quarter.
It really did, and I thought, like I said, it's the third best national title game I've seen. I think in general, it was just the third best. I know people have been tossing it around, but look, USC Texas by far number 1, just because of all the talent. At the time, I don't care what it went on to be in the NFL. At the time, the amount of talent that was on the field was ridiculous, and it was the unquestioned 2 best teams. Second best game, Ohio State and Miami.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
Easily Ohio State and Miami. Not even, and Ohio State fans may even argue that game was bigger than USC Texas, though I think amongst most people it's a consensus that Vince Young's, and I have to agree, but that game was so phenomenal. I mean, you know what, man? After last year's shellacking by Alabama, it was. People are going to hate the BCS. They're going to love the BCS. People are going to hate the playoff. They're going to love the playoff. At the end of the day, what you really do hope for is that in its final year, the BCS got it right. Somehow, the BCS got the bowl games right.
Right. I know it's kind of a mute point now, but if there was still a debate, that the BCS hardcore defenders would still be saying, we don't need a playoff. Look, it works.
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, the playoff is obviously
right.
I mean, wait until the first. I mean, the funny thing about the people saying that is that they're putting that out there without ever having seen a college playoff game. Like,
right.
We just know it's going to be so much better that we're just going to say it now. Without seeing one, we just know it'll be better.
Yeah.
Honestly, legitimate. If you look at, I mean, because who would have been in the playoffs? It would have been Ohio State. It would have been Michigan State, right? How would it have finished? It would have been Florida State, Auburn, and I don't remember who was 3.
Oh gosh. Yeah, because Alabama was 4.
Alabama was 3.
Alabama was 4. I thought.
Maybe they were. I don't remember. I don't care. The playoff probably would have been fantastic. I mean, it would have sucked that Alabama got another bite at the apple, but you know what? I don't think you lose on a kick 6, and I'm not going to hold it against you.
Was Michigan State 3? No,
I don't know.
Who's 3?
Anyway, who cares?
Yeah.
But it is what it is. But kind of moving on to since we didn't have much by recruiting, I kind of wanted to look at. We obviously now know that we have sort of the guys, Austin Wentworth, Marcel Jensen, have accepted bids to play in the Shrine Bowl.
Yeah.
We're sort of looking at where Derek Carr will go. Davante Adams has submitted his paperwork. How is this all going to work out? And now we have other announcements because now we know that Blake Bortles is coming out. Teddy Bridgewater's coming out.
Right.
Johnny Manziel's coming out.
Yep.
Like, we have a better idea of where these people are.
Yeah.
What, Scott, what do you think's the most intriguing thing to you when you look at, like, some of these Fresno State guys? What's the most intriguing thing to you as you're looking at, like, where they may go in the draft?
I'm really curious to see, especially now with guys like Josh Bortles and Johnny Manziel and Teddy Bridgewater all declaring for the draft, where Derek Carr finally ends up slotting. That may not be the most intriguing to most people, but let's be honest, quarterback is the most important position, and after the struggles that Derek Carr had in the Las Vegas Bowl, I'm curious to see if he can make up enough of that ground to be drafted as a high to mid first round pick. Like everybody was slotting him prior to. And also, other than Derek Carr, I'm curious to see where Davante Adams lands because his draft grade was a third-round pick. But I think after seeing him up close, everybody that's watched this Fresno State team, and in particular Davante all year, we all know, or at least think, that Davante is worthy of a first-round pick. And then also, another fringe guy that I'm kind of curious to see where he goes is Isaiah Burst. I'm really curious to see where he ends up and what team ends up taking a crack at him. What about you?
Yeah, I definitely think it's going to be interesting to see where Derek Carr goes right now. People have him like slated at the end of that first round. I'm seeing a lot of like 19s, 20s, and there's still some other guys out there that honestly believe he's the number one quarterback,
right?
In terms of pro ready, and
that's where it gets kind of confusing because I've read that too.
Man, I've always said, and I think that today's NFL, and I want it on the record that I'm probably the worst draft expert you've ever listened to.
Charles Davis, where are you when we need you?
But you know what, though? I have been right about several things. And it's like I don't really go on record and saying stuff about guys with any degree of certainty unless I'm pretty positive about them. And I was right about Colin Kaepernick.
Right.
I said it when the 49ers got Kaepernick in the second round. I said it way back then. It's on my Twitter. I'm sure you can find it. I said Colin Kaepernick would be a steal.
And
I couldn't believe he fell that, to them. Like, it was ridiculous that Colin Kaepernick was going to be with the 49ers.
You're not...
With all the talent that they had at that time, and that the fact that they were getting Colin Kaepernick, I said that NFL teams were going to regret that one. And
you're not alone.
Not even a couple years later, let's see. Oh, crap. A solid defense with an outstanding offensive line and a running game and a quarterback who can run faster than most running backs. Oh, look, most teams already do regret the 49ers being able to get Kaepernick.
Well, look, and since you mentioned it, Mike Brown, the Bengals owner, came out earlier this week and said, hey, I really wanted Colin Kaepernick instead of Andy Dalton, but Jay Gruden pushed really hard for Andy Dalton instead of Kaepernick. I really wish we would have drafted Kaepernick. Well,
I don't really think that with the Bengals. Honestly, I think Colin Kaepernick wouldn't be what he is were he in Cincinnati.
Right.
I really do believe that the opportunity to learn under Harbaugh
and Greg Roman
and those guys that down there in San Francisco gave him the opportunity to develop. And I think that what most Fresno State fans are screaming, if they're listening to this, is that's sort of how they feel about David. Like, if David would have gone anywhere else, what would the trajectory of his career have looked like? Mm-hmm. And Fresno State fans want to believe that he would have gone on to be one of the greats. And the truth is, we'll never know. I mean, he had his problems, but he also had his upsides. And I think that anyone who tells you with any degree of certainty that he would or would not have succeeded is just full of it, because there's really no way to know. It's answering one of life's great unknowns.
I mean, I like to think that
of course
he would have... I don't know whether he would have been a Hall of Famer, because that's tough to say. But I think he would have been much improved from what he ended up becoming. I think that's safe to say. I think he would have been better, at least somewhat.
Well, and I'd like to think that Matt Leinart would have been a solid NFL backup, maybe a decent game manager as a starter had he not partied in the hot tub with Nick Lachey. But the truth of the matter is that in hindsight, when we're able to look at some of these things, when you look at the NFL and the way that it was trending, it's probably not likely that Carr at that time might have. Yeah, it's hard to know. When you look at Leinart, his type of quarterback was on their way out of the NFL. We just didn't know it. And so it's like when you look back at some of these things, maybe the best thing that could have ever happened to David Carr's career is the fact that we still talk about the what if. Because what if David Carr had gone on to a team with a solid offensive line that could have kept him upright, and he just bottomed out? Ryan Leaf bottomed out.
Yeah.
I mean, how does his story look at Fresno? It kind of looks horrible in retrospect. You're like, it was another bust, and it probably hurts the school more than helps it. But, and I'm just raising this as a devil's advocate here, but because that offensive line in Houston and that squad, just everything about it was so young, so one-dimensional, so just so everything.
So green?
Yeah, it almost gives David Carr's NFL career an aura of mystique. And sort of, it leaves it in that great unknown.
Right.
He's just, instead of being an NFL bust, he's a Fresno State great.
Right.
He just went to a bad team.
Well, and I think a lot of people kind of, at least here locally, feel the same way about Trent Dilfer.
Yeah, there you go. Another one, man. I think that circumstances can sometimes define your career, and not in a bad way.
Right.
I mean, sometimes it's better. I mean, I'll tell you what, man. If I were an NFL quarterback, I'd sure as hell rather have David Carr's legacy than Matt Leinart's. And I'll go on record as saying that.
Yeah.
I would much rather be the dude that had a lengthy NFL career, but is defined as the guy who just couldn't get any help on offense or protection.
Right.
Versus the dude who he had it all given to him and he washed out.
Yep.
And I think that when you look at Derek, kind of getting back to where we are with this, when you look at Derek, where he's at, what he's capable of doing, he's sort of hitting that comparison wall and unfairly so, in my opinion.
Right.
After the Las Vegas Bowl this is good. It's going to be like when he sees NFL defenses.
Yeah.
No, because Derek is too smart. Maybe it frustrated him on that day, but I guarantee you he learned something going back and looking at it.
Right.
Like the assumption, a quarterback having a bad game isn't the problem.
Right.
The problem is, how does the quarterback respond from that bad game, and what does he look like the next time he sees something similar?
Right.
That's where you sort of gauge the true value of a quarterback. I don't fault the guy for being befuddled the first time you see something. You know, I mean, I can only imagine what a team thought the very first time a dude said, we're going to throw the ball down the field.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine being those guys?
Right.
Like, holy crap, what is this?
Well,
is this legal?
Yeah.
I think that... What's up?
Well, I was going to say, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
but,
go for it.
You were saying a little bit about the fact that kind of the Carr name may end up coming back to hurt Derek, or has already, in terms of just the fact that he's his brother's relative or related to David, has David's same last name. Do you think he's going to be able to overcome that, or how much on draft day do you think that's going to hurt him, or will it by the time the draft rolls around in May?
I honestly think that by the time the draft comes, all right, first and foremost, it's going to be a combine thing. Two things. One, he's going to go to the combine. How's he going to perform at the combine? Second thing, which is they probably become bigger than the combine because a lot of dudes are opting out of the combine.
Right.
It used to be that you went, like only the
Right.
best of the best got the invite to
Right.
the combine. Now all of a sudden the best of the best figured out, screw that, man.
Yeah, because that's actually hurting my draft stock if I screw up at the combine.
Where I'm comfortable, where I'm relaxed, and where I can throw to dudes that I've been working with,
Right.
And so the trick for Carr will be, and he's already been back down here in Bakersfield at BCHS working out.
Right.
And it's sort of Carr is doing what the smart ones do. They go back to their roots, then they work their way back up into college, and that's where they have their pro day. And if they still need the combine, then they take advantage of the combine. But I think that Derek is he's getting himself prepared in all of the right ways, and I think that by the time the draft comes around, and rightfully so, the experts are going to look at that Las Vegas Bowl game, and they're going to see a lot of different things that the normal fan doesn't see.
Right.
They're going to see that his receivers were dropping balls.
Yeah.
They're going to see that his offensive line wasn't giving him much more than 4 to 5 seconds.
Yep.
If that. Maybe 3.
Yep.
They're going to see that USC was sending a lot of different creative things that the other Fresno State players weren't picking up on, and thus, because of that, it was affecting the outcome of the play. They're going to see Josh Shaw hammering Davante Adams at the line and throwing off his timing and his ability to get into the play.
Yep.
They're going to see all of these different things that the normal fan doesn't see, and then they're going to look at all the other things that Derek Carr did do right, such as the fact that by all rights necessary, Fresno State should have been out of that game at halftime.
Mm-hmm.
He at least brought it back to the point where fans are thinking, okay, maybe. Until that Josh Shaw interception, I think that's when most Fresno State fans are like, yeah, it's not happening.
Right.
It's just not happening. But they're going to see all of these things, and they're going to go back through, and they're going to look at all the other times that Carr faced adversity, and they're going to see what he did the next time he saw it. How was he able to pick up on it? And you know what? I, at the end of the day, really don't think it's going to hurt as much as maybe people want it to hurt him. Because I don't know if maybe the perception is that these small school quarterbacks are the issue. You know?
Right.
I think that everybody seems to think that, like, oh, the guy has to come out of, like, the SEC or this or that or the other, when the truth of the matter is that the NFL quarterbacks, man, they'll take them where they can get them. They don't give a crap. You think Baltimore gives one flippin' care in the world that Joe Flacco played at Delaware?
Right. No.
You know? And do you think the San Francisco 49ers last season gave a damn that Colin Kaepernick played at Nevada?
No.
Nope. Didn't matter to them. All they knew was that a Delaware quarterback was facing a Nevada quarterback in the Super Bowl.
Right.
And I think that when you look at Derek Carr, these things are there, man. The things that you want, if you're an NFL team, let's run down a checklist real quick, okay? You want a solid character guy. In today's league, especially after the Aaron Hernandez thing, I think we'd start at solid character.
Mm-hmm.
Right? First, you want to, try to be able to protect your investment.
Right.
So you're going to want a solid character guy that's not going to get into trouble.
Right.
He's definitely that. You're going to want a guy that's good for the locker room. Okay, he's unquestioned that. No, he's a quarterback, so you're definitely going to want a leader.
Right.
Well, I don't think there's anybody that would ever question Derek Carr's leadership skills or his ability to get his team into it or command a huddle.
No arguments here.
So, and as you start to go down this list, NFL teams are going to have these checklists. They're going to fill out a lot better than maybe some of these other guys. Because I'm not here to rip on Johnny Manziel, and I still think he'll go top 10.
Right.
Because, honestly, he's that kind of a talent. And I think that people rip on him really don't understand how good he is. He can throw the ball down the field.
Yeah,
he does have issues.
Right. There's a school of thought that's maybe pegging him to go to Jacksonville.
You know what, dude? If anything's going to put butts in the seat in Jacksonville, that guy will.
Other than Tebow.
Yeah. Short of Tebow.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you look at these things, and with Manziel, can you say the same things about Manziel that can you say about Carr?
No.
No, you can't. And particularly when it comes to character or will this guy get into trouble, I'm not saying that Manziel's a bad guy. I don't.
Right.
He's a kid, man. He did what most high or college kids that were the big man on campus would do. Like, the only difference between Manziel and maybe like a frat leader is that Manziel was the biggest of the big on that campus. Like
right.
When he walked in, the chicks left the frat leader to go over to him.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's just sort of the way it really went down. But with Carr, you don't run into these issues. This isn't what he has a wife, he has a kid, he's settled, he knows what he wants out of life. You know that you're going to get a Bible thumping, hard-working, leader in the huddle. And I don't say that disrespectfully.
That's why I keep saying, man, Carr to Minnesota just makes all the sense in the world.
Well, Minnesota needs a guy, and to be honest, Christian Ponder's just not that good.
No.
He never really was at Florida State.
Yeah.
He is a backup quarterback, and I think Minnesota's realizing that. And I think a lot of people want to make it out to be more than it is because of his his big-time marriage. And I think that it gives people some sense of pride to, put the guy down. And I don't know, I don't really get on board that bandwagon. I think, for me, Ponder's just not that good. He has issues recognizing things that I don't think Derek Carr has a problem identifying. Now, the trick with Derek Carr is going to be, how does this guy operate out of maybe a different system than where he had his most success? Because Carr was running in DeRuyter's system, which operated out of the shotgun quite a bit.
Now, that is a very interesting thought that you just brought up. And I think this is the perfect opportunity for me to take the conversation this way. Let's say, and I know you're a big Saints fan, let's say they get eliminated this weekend, and I'm not saying they will, because I'm actually rooting for them, because I want them to knock off Seattle.
Oh, they will. They'll get eliminated this weekend.
But okay,
look, man, I don't think any Saints fan on the planet can realistically expect New Orleans to go in there and beat Seattle.
Right.
Given just A, how tough they are at home, but B, asking for anything more than one road playoff win in a season, at first, I feel like that's looking a gift horse in the mouth.
Yeah.
But continue.
Anyway. Let's say they get eliminated this weekend, which, like we said, in all honesty, is probably going to happen. All right? So, Uh, they would be picking what? Probably like 22, 23. Let's say, and Drew Brees is getting up there. He's like, what, 35 now?
Yeah, and on top of that, as good as Drew Brees has been, he also has an interception problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, and look,
so
let me just be clear. Ain't nobody replacing Brees anytime soon.
No.
But
let's say Derek Carr slides. And let's say Derek Carr is there, as is Davante Adams, and maybe a little slot guy. I think first round is a little high to go for Burst. And even a good center or offensive lineman in Austin Wentworth. Let's say you have your pick of all four of those guys at like 22, 23 in the first round. Where do you go if you're Mickey Loomis?
Man. Man, I gotta be honest. If Carr were to be there, and it would be largely dependent on what other talent was there, but I actually like the fit of Derek Carr on the Saints for so many different reasons. Just because, look, for as small as Drew Brees, Derek Carr and Drew Brees, just the type of personalities they are, the type of human beings they are. Like, can you imagine a better marriage for a mentor-protege? I mean, as I said, he's highly religious. Well, everybody on the planet knows Drew Brees is super, super religious. Like, he's never been shy. Like, I think he's about as out there as Kurt Warner is. In terms of where he's at on religion. And just the style of play, they're pro-ready. And that's sort of, a lot of people liked Brees coming out of college. It was just his size they didn't like. Him, they liked. The size, not so much. And I think with Carr, if you would have given Drew Brees Derek Carr's size, I mean, Brees would have gone number one overall, maybe, I think.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was a huge Drew Brees fan when he played in college. I loved watching him. That was back when Purdue was good and was on ABC like every weekend. I became a huge Drew Brees fan. And
but now, if you look at the fact that, okay, I think that anybody who knows a little bit about Sean Payton knows the story of how the reason that Tony Romo is where he is right now has a lot to do with Sean Payton. And it's because when Sean Payton first got the job at the Saints, he went after Tony Romo. He wanted to take him with him. I think he offered up to a second-round pick for it. And Jerry Jones, being the crafty businessman that he is, knew. I mean, he had a ton of respect for Peyton, and he just knew. If this guy's offering me that for him, then there's something to this. And so Jerry Jones wouldn't part with it, forcing Sean Payton to look elsewhere. This is how Brees ends up where he is.
Poor Tony Romo.
Yeah. And Tony Romo, who just happens to be poor guy, I mean, things just didn't work out for him, did they? You sort of look at that situation of how all these things came about when you look at the style of quarterback that Tony Romo is, and you still look at the style of quarterback that Drew Brees is. When you look at the style of quarterback that Derek Carr is, there are just so many different similarities between all of them. These guys, all of them have enough to get out there. Like, Brees probably is the least mobile out of all of them. But I've seen Brees get upfield. He's got that little bit of Steve Young in him. That he'll go and pick it up. I think Derek's capable of getting you a hell of a lot more than any of those other. Maybe Romo is probably about as athletic. I mean, when he takes off, he can pick up some stuff. But there's that style of play. And if you look at what Sean Payton does with those, and just the fact that Derek is so good at finding the open man, it's almost that if something were to happen to Drew Brees, Scott, I mean, that's almost a plug-and-play situation, isn't it? I mean, Derek's offense, just everything about that. And I think if you're New Orleans, when you're looking at where Brees is at, yeah, man, I think I got to agree with you. I would take a good hard look at him, because that gives you, if you're New Orleans and Drew Brees, this gives you the chance to mentor the next guy.
Yeah.
And then if you're Sean Payton, this gives you incentive to stay with the Saints because your style of offense isn't going to go anywhere and you can just sort of replace it. So I think it's a win-win for New Orleans because, I mean, one of the things that, Sean Payton loves about Drew Brees is that they're always on the same page. It's like they call in plays. Drew often says, I was thinking the same exact thing. That's what I was going to go with. And I think that if you start with Drew working with, Derek early on in his career and just sort of passing the torch situation, I think that I don't know if it ever ends up working out this way. It certainly didn't. I mean, can you imagine if Indy had been able to get Andrew Luck on the sidelines as Peyton Manning even for just 2 years? A year.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, can you that's what Indy wants.
That would be disgusting, by the way.
It would be, but that's what Indy fans wanted.
Right.
Is that Andrew Luck would have taken over this team after being nurtured
by
Manning. So I don't know if it goes down that way in New Orleans.
It would have been akin to actually even better than the 49ers having Joe Montana and then, oh, by the way, Steve Young.
Yeah.
Oh, and then, by the way, not a bad shabby quarterback in Jeff Garcia right behind Steve Young.
All right. You kind of lose me on that one.
Well, okay, I like Garcia, man.
I mean, I was with you up until you said Garcia, but I mean, I get what you're saying in terms of replacement, and I think that when you look at the situation in New Orleans and just how smart Derek is, I think it would be fabulous. I'd love it.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's really New Orleans' greatest position of need right now.
Well, they always say that guys don't draft, or GMs don't draft for positions of need. They draft for the best guys on the board.
Yeah.
And, I mean,
I think a lot of teams are starting to find out that that's not really a way to get it done.
Right.
And I think that if you're looking at the most successful franchises in professional sports,
they do draft for
at
need.
Least over the past couple of years, it's been very smart and skillful drafts. I mean, if you look at what my Red Sox were able to do this year, I think that I think a lot of people thought that when Theo Epstein took that job with the Cubs, that was it. John Henry has the money, but Epstein was the brains.
Right.
Enter Ben Cherington, and the results are just the same.
Right. Well, and I told
actually, the results might have even been better because I mean nobody can really doubt that Epstein won with some superb talent.
Right.
But I think if you look at the teams that Epstein won with compared to like the sort of role player guys that Cherington won with, you might actually have to argue that Ben Cherington did the better job. But to kind of bringing this all back full circle, I really do think that if Derek Carr is fortunate enough to wind up in a situation where you've got a guy that's still he's the guy, because you don't want him drafted into a tenuous situation,
right?
I mean the best tenuous situation that I can think is if Carr were to end up on a team like the Philadelphia Eagles, because I like Chip Kelly's ability to develop quarterbacks. And especially with how he works with them and the style of play that Carr's been doing, I think that Chip Kelly could look at what he's turned Nick Foles into.
Yeah,
I think Derek Carr's a better version of Nick Foles, but look at what Chip Kelly was able to do with Nick Foles.
Yeah.
Now, give him the mind, body, and talent of a Derek Carr. I'm not saying that Foles is bad. I just think Carr is better. And I've seen them both play live.
Or what about this? And I've thrown this out before. The Niners don't really have anything behind Kaepernick. And I think Kaepernick could do with a little competition. And
I think that's a bad situation right now because, I don't know, the 49ers are sort of a hot team right now, but they're also a team that's getting picked over.
Right.
And the reason that they are a team that's getting picked over is because they're a hot team.
Right.
And I think that in a better situation, and honestly, I like Colin Kaepernick, and I don't think Carr would unseat him just because Colin Kaepernick adds. Look, man, back-to-back playoff games against the Packers sort of speak for themselves.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
Derek
yeah,
Carr
but
is gonna
the
do
the
that.
the thing that really concerns me though about Kaepernick is just
He has one
his
loss in the playoffs.
right,
That's
but
all I'm
his
saying.
but
And
his
and that was a pretty close loss.
right, but his mental lapses not quite there in terms of the mental side of the game. There's a lot of times where he's had a lot of delays of games simply because he's not watching the play clock. And
I mean, fair enough. But again, we're talking about the situation that works best for Derek Carr.
right.
Where does he need to end up such that it'll help him? And I think a lot of fans, when they look at drafts, they're like, I just like to have that guy on my team.
Right. Well, I think with
I don't know if the San Francisco 49ers would be the best landing spot.
well, I think with Harbaugh,
yeah, but he wouldn't.
He
would be the second guy.
Yeah.
That's not really like it does give competition to Colin Kaepernick, but it doesn't at the same time because you're not going to be able to run the same offense with him. So how are you supposed to compare and have them compete when the things that you're asking Colin Kaepernick to do, like Derek Carr can do some of those things certainly, but if look, man, if you run some of those zone read plays with Kaepernick and with Derek Carr, look, you're just going to get different results.
Yeah. Well, no, like I think
I'm guessing the results are going to be slightly better with now.
Well, look, I mean, they did it. They did it with Kaepernick and Alex Smith, and I think
Alex Smith was always a guy that could scoot. Urban Meyer used him that same way at Utah.
Yeah.
Urban Meyer recruited him there for that reason.
Right.
Derek Carr was brought there to throw the ball.
It's true.
And so to that end, I think you would like to see him on an offense. Like, I mean, if you look at what Nick Foles is able to do, like I said, if you look at the Eagles, if you look at the Saints, if you look at a couple other teams that come to my mind. I mean, I know that fans don't want to hear this, but the Raiders have weapons, man.
Yeah.
Like,
please.
Come on, man.
Ugh.
I know fans don't want to hear that, but the Raiders have weapons. They just don't have. Name me the last time the Raiders had a true, legitimate, successful, like not a rehash, not a rewash. Name me the last time the Raiders had a true, legitimate, successful, intelligent guy running the show back there. And you know, I'm even throwing, like, Carson Palmer to me just doesn't count. The dude, like, I saw him at USC the week before he signed. He was drinking Tecate 20 feet next to me the week he got signed by the Raiders. So I'm just saying, like, that. There are
probably Rich Gannon, or even going.
Rich Gannon was really a rewash, man.
Well,
Rich Gannon had a second chance in Oakland, and he just happened to cash it in.
Well, yeah, when you
I'm talking about getting a guy in there from start, developing him, mentoring him, and a guy that honestly can handle all the crap that goes on. Like, when you look at a guy
Daryl LaMonica,
like Ken Stabler,
No, Derek LaMonica.
I'm just trying to think here. Was Ken Stabler like?
Yeah, Ken Stabler was. I don't think he was a. I could be wrong. I don't think he was a Raider draft pick, though. I don't know.
No, I don't think he was either. But I'm just saying, like, the last time they had a guy in there.
That's what I'm saying, Derek LaMonica.
You know, and so you look at that.
Who was an original draft pick.
Yeah, I mean.
At quarterback. I mean, Jim Plunkett, but Jim Plunkett wasn't either.
All right, truth be told, let me you could ask the fans something if they even want to, but truth be told, where would you rather see Derek end up? In New York or in Oakland? I'm talking the Jets, not the Giants, the Jets.
I would say
exactly. You have to think about it.
I would say the Jets, actually.
So you'd rather have him on there with Sanchez, Geno.
Sanchez isn't gonna be there. He's not gonna be there. He's not gonna be there. I would be shocked if Sanchez is gonna be there next year.
You know what would be another fit? Okay, here's a fit that nobody's talking about that I think would be spectacular. St. Louis.
Yeah.
Bradford is too injury prone.
Well, and he can't make all the throws either.
No, he can't. And, I think that with Derek, you get a more polished product. You get a guy who's not as injured.
I was actually thinking about that.
Look at the weapons they have on there.
Yeah. If
you gave St. Louis a legitimate quarterback, that wasn't going to be injured, and, we just hope that...
You mean Kellen Clemens isn't a legitimate quarterback?
Well. But
I kid.
If you gave St. Louis a reliable and accurate passer,
right?
I mean, the NFC West is
the NFC West.
In your division is Carson Palmer.
That's
not a bad division.
No, that's a pretty dang good division.
And I legitimately think that on a team like that, I think the teams that would suit Carr the best are teams that have those types of the personnel where they can spread you out and you let him find the open man. I just think Carr just. He could definitely do it another way.
How about this? If he slides down to the low 20s and nobody grabs him, talking about a team that can spread guys out. Ryan Mallett has been rumored to be moved for years. What about Belichick sneaking in there and grabbing him?
No, that'd be an optimal situation for Derek Carr, then, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, it'll be all up to Josh McDaniels because there's a lot of, and I don't know if these reports are true. I don't know if they're not true. But with Josh McDaniels removing himself from consideration for the Cleveland job,
right,
there were reports going around that there are some in or around the organization who believe that McDaniels was always or is going to be Belichick's successor.
Right, that's what I was thinking.
And so it'll depend on what McDaniels wants, who's a quarterback guy.
Right.
And if McDaniels is like, dude, give me that guy, man, you think the people hate the New England Patriots now?
How disgusting would that be?
Imagine if they're good for another 10 years.
Yeah, you replace. Well, and they'd be harder to hate with Derek as the face of their franchise.
That's what I'm saying. If you think people hate him now, imagine if the Patriots are contenders for another 10 to 15 years. If the Patriots had a 30-year window where they were good, I'm sorry, man. The world will explode. They already hate Boston teams as it is. If the New England Patriots are able to string together two successful quarterback lineages that span for a 20, 30-year period, they might just be the most hated team in professional sports. They might pass the Yankees.
I was just thinking about this the other night, especially with the Josh McDaniels removing his name from consideration for the Cleveland job, and you mentioned that Josh McDaniels might be Bill Belichick's successor, and this has nothing to do with Fresno State, but what if Belichick were to retire in another couple of years and say the head coaching situation in Cleveland doesn't work out with whoever they decide to hire, and Bill Belichick goes back to Cleveland?
That'd certainly be interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I mean,
anyway,
he wouldn't, but I don't know. Yeah, that's just fun to think about.
Right. But also,
Derek Carr to New England would be another fabulous fit. To be honest, I think he would be better than Ryan Mallett.
Yeah.
I'm not really convinced that Ryan Mallett's. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, at this point,
Petrino's quarter. I don't know.
If I'm the GM of the Patriots, and to be honest, I don't even know who that is. If Derek Carr is there, and I can get something for Ryan Mallett, anything like maybe a low 4, maybe an early 5, at worst. I take that, and I draft Derek Carr.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it'll all depend on. Let's see, let me take a look at this. Who do they even have? Quarterback. NFL draft. Let me pull this up. Let's see what they've got him at now. Rankings 2014. Let's check this out. We're going to check out, let's see, CBS. Let's check it out. We'll go to CBS's first. No, we want quarterbacks. Go. All right, so we have Derek Carr is currently the 4th-ranked prospect.
Okay.
They've got Bridgewater at number 1, Bortles at number... Well, that's just kind of interesting. They've got Bridgewater at number 1, Bortles at number 3, but going 2nd, and Manziel at number 2, but going 3rd.
Huh.
If you followed that.
Yeah.
So they have in order of selection, it would go Bridgewater, Bortles, Manziel, and Carr, but in terms of ranking, it would go Bridgewater, Manziel, Bortles, Carr.
Which it seems like, depending on where you look, that Bortles is even a better prospect than Manziel, but I don't know.
Yeah, well, Bortles is sort of an interesting guy to rank. But here's the thing: I think that depending on pro day, because the thing with Bridgewater is that everyone speculates that. All right, here first and foremost, Bridgewater is a pocket passer, much like Carr. And so when you're comparing the two of them, Bridgewater and Carr are more similar than any of of those 4.
Right.
Manziel and Bortles are similar to each other, but Bridgewater and Carr would be more similar to one another than any of the other two. So I think if Derek Carr has the better pro day, has the better combine, he could. I mean, this is also it's speculative. If Bridgewater has a poor showing, then wouldn't Derek Carr vault up to number 1? If you're projecting a pro style quarterback, not a dual threat. If you're projecting a pro style quarterback is the number 1 off the board, and you are with Bridgewater, that's what you're doing. Then wouldn't Derek Carr replace him if he has the better pro day or combine?
It would make sense.
That would make sense to me.
Yeah, but I can guarantee you, unless Houston trades out of that number 1 spot, if that does happen with Carr, he's not going to Houston.
No, I don't think. Well, I don't. You know what, dude? I gotta be honest with you. If you look at who Houston has right now with Bill O'Brien, I think that if I'm Derek Carr, and I know Fresno State fans don't want to hear this, but if Houston drafted me, I listen. Bill O'Brien, look at what he did with Christian Hackenberg at Penn State.
You think the Texans front office would really want that PR headache on their hands?
I don't think if it's the best possible player, then yeah, you take him. Isn't that what we were saying? If that's your draft board. But if you look at Bill O'Brien, he has a fabulous history of developing quarterbacks, and that's going to be a different system than what Kubiak had. I can guarantee you that.
Right.
It's going to be a much, much different system than what Kubiak had. And I also think that when you look at some of the talent that Bill O'Brien's bringing in, I know a lot of people didn't see this, but he pulled over Mike Vrabel from Ohio State. He's been out coach line. I mean, Bill O'Brien's trying to assemble a great staff down there in Houston. Like, they have the pieces right there. So I think that whoever you draft in Houston, you have to, if you're going to plug them in, you have to make sure that they have the intelligence to grasp what O'Brien's going to ask them to do. And I think that really, to be honest, Bridgewater or Carr can do that. I don't know much about Bortles. I don't know what kind of complex schemes Manziel can handle. He was a different style of. I mean, he's a Texas quarterback, only about a 3-star coming out. Committed to Oregon and didn't want to. Randall and Mariota all committed within the same 3 weeks there in June, and then obviously Randall couldn't get admitted. Manziel, we kind of know what happened to him, and Mariota, we know what happened to him. So, that's how these things work out. But if you have that, if you have the intelligence to run the type of scheme that O'Brien's going to have, and you can get in there and you can get the job done, then why wouldn't you? I mean, would you, if you were a college quarterback coming out, Are you going to tell me that it's really that? The Houston team that David got drafted to is not the same as the J.J. Watt, Andre Johnson, Arian Foster team that Houston has now.
It's true.
Near the same thing.
It's true.
And if I'm Derek Carr, now I know Andre Johnson's getting up there, but my God, DeAndre Hopkins don't look too bad, does he?
Nope.
So, I mean, they have talent there. I don't know, man. I think there's a number of great situations for Carr. I kind of feel bad that we spent the whole podcast talking about him instead of some of the other guys.
Well, yeah, and I actually do still kind of want to go into some of the other guys.
Yeah, well, let's do it.
Can you look up and see where, unless it's just the first round, but see where Davante's slotted?
I had him round 2 to 3 is where they have him going. I looked actually at wide receivers the other day when I went on air with Andrew. I was kind of talking some of these things out. They have Davante slated right now at round 2, the 10th ranked receiver.
What about Wentworth?
Huh?
What about Wentworth?
Offensive lineman. Let's see. He's a left tackle. So let's see. Offensive tackles. Let's find out. Wentworth's a good one. Tricky one.
Yeah, in fact, I would, if I were the Niners.
No, they have Wentworth going in the 6th round.
Oh, wow. He'll be a steal for somebody.
They have Jake Matthews. They have Greg Robinson, Quanjo. They have Zach Martin, Taylor Lewin from Michigan. There's a number of dudes coming out.
Wentworth will be a steal for somebody.
Yeah, they still have, as far as I've seen, with the exception of maybe Marcel Jensen, and I haven't even pulled him up yet. Let me pull him up real quick so we can get him in there. Where are you? Tight end. There we go. With the exception of maybe Marcel Jensen. Nope, they still have Marcel Jensen getting drafted. It's looking like mostly everybody that's declared is projected to get drafted at least.
Cool.
Marcel Jensen's actually in that 3 to 4 round. Now, it's going to be hurt by the fact that I actually kind of find it amusing that he's slated to go higher than Xavier Grimble from USC. It's like, why'd you come back?
No.
But, yeah, man, look, tight end, the fact that he's the third, okay, let's put it this way. Eric Ebron from North Carolina is the number 1 dude they're expecting to go. Jay Samaro from Texas Tech, clearly the number 2. I voted that guy All-American. Austin Safarian Jenkins from UW, another obvious one. And then you have Fedorowicz from Iowa, Lynch from Georgia, and then they're projecting Marcel Jensen. So I think that outside of those first 3 guys, you could really improve your stock kind of anywhere in there.
Right.
I don't see Marcel Jensen going ahead of any of those top 3 guys, but I definitely think that he could,
Right.
I mean, the mere fact that they have him going the third tight end off the board after those guys is pretty good.
Right. I mean, that is pretty good. Man, and I keep saying, I would love to see Davante change out his Bulldog red, blue, and white for some 49er red, gold, and white.
Well,
this year.
I think that
especially if he's slated to go in the 2nd round. I mean, if they decide that they want to sneak up and maybe grab him a little early, I think he'd be a good fit.
I think I honestly think it's really going to depend on the teams that are drafting ahead and where some of these guys go, because as well as I do that all of these things are sort of predicated on the idea that when people fill these things out, it's predicated on the idea that it'll go in the order that they have it. Like,
right.
They assume that, Watkins, it's generally fine.
And it never happens.
There's only some variation of
right.
Watkins, Lee, or Evans. Like, maybe somebody takes Lee ahead of Evans.
Right.
It's not that big of a deal. But it's when somebody comes out there and is like, with a number 1 overall pick, whoever selects Jarvis Landry, and you're like, what the hell?
Yeah.
You know, it's always those
or the Raiders passing on Michael Crabtree for Darius Hayward-Bay a couple of years ago.
Right. Which has obviously worked out so well for everybody.
I'm still laughing about that one.
And I'm actually kind of amused by the fact that Jalen Saunders is projected to be a 5th-round pick.
Man. Yeah.
He's a small guy, 5'9". I mean, that's what's really
Yeah, but I mean, dude, really, really good sneaky slot guy for somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. So all of these things are sort of predicated on that, and they never really go that way. So I think that, I think Davante Adams will. It all depends on how these guys test.
Right.
Because Davante Adams can be projected as a 2nd round, but if he has a horrible combine showing, the fact that he played at Fresno State and had a bad showing, it'll kill him.
Right.
Kill him.
Right.
You know?
And so he could potentially be a steal for somebody if he slides.
Or he could potentially not get drafted. I mean, that's like absolutely worst case scenario.
Right.
Nobody should think
Right.
that's going to happen.
Right.
But you always have to allow for the possibilities. Like some of these dudes that are coming out for SC, I don't know who gave them their 2nd or 3rd round grades because I don't think they translate at that position.
Right.
You know, like I just. Sure, you play that position in college, but you're not going to be that in the NFL. Like, you're too small. You can't play that position in the NFL.
I saw actually a mock draft, I think it was on Bleacher Report, of the 1st round, and they were saying, like, in the low 20s about Marquise Lee going to the 49ers. I know this isn't the Peristyle podcast, and we're not on USC football, but what do you think about that?
I think it'd be interesting. I mean, and Marquise Lee did. I think it really, to be perfectly honest, I don't think they need him. If I'm the 49ers, I'd take Mike Evans over Marquise Lee. And the reason for that is you already have a style. Like Michael Crabtree and Marquise Lee are not that much different from one another.
Right.
Maybe one's faster, maybe one has better hands. But in terms of the overall player, they're not that much different.
Yeah.
Now, Mike Evans and Michael Crabtree, now you're talking.
Right. Or
if you line up Mike Evans opposite Vernon Davis, I don't know. just saying, man.
Look out, NFL.
I mean, if you have dudes that big and that physical that can beat you up on the line of scrimmage, and then you complement that with the talent that the 49ers already have on those outside edges and the backs they have and then you have to worry about obviously Kaepernick getting out in space. I think, I take Mike Evans for the 49ers. That's just me. That's just me talking draft.
Or Davante, because we've all seen what Davante can do, and also with him being from Palo Alto, playing at Palo Alto High, I think that would just be almost too perfect. But
I'd like to see Davante on somebody like the St. Louis Rams, man. I'll tell you what. That'd be kind of awesome.
Yeah. But, anyway, Josh, I think we'll just about wrap it up for today. Yes, and thank you all for hanging in there with us and listening to this long episode of the Red Wave Report. And like we mentioned, we will have a fresh episode for you tomorrow. At least we're going to record it tomorrow. And it should be up by hopefully Saturday at the latest. But anyway. Of course, the Red Wave Report is the official podcast of FSBulldogs.com, Fresno State's Rivals.com site, and you can find us on Twitter at Fresno Dogs. The same thing on Facebook. Just search for Facebook.com/Fresno Dogs. And I am at Scotty, SCOTTYJ Sports on Twitter. And Josh, I will let you, or have you rather, not let you, this isn't just my show, I will have you throw your Twitter handle out there if you would be so kind, sir.
It is at Fight on Twist, TWIST, like a lemon twist or a twist of something, I don't know, twist and shout.
Cinnamon twists from Taco Bell.
Yes, so those things are good.
Yes, yummy.
But that is where you can find me. And you can also email me. My email should be on the site. So if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can find me on there and shoot me an email or a tweet. And
Or
we're always here to answer anything that we can.
let's not
for you
forget
guys.
the message boards as well. Keep up the good work, guys, on the message boards. We really appreciate all the interaction on the message boards. Right, Josh?
Absolutely, absolutely. Message boards, email, whatever, but do participate. We love to hear you guys, or if you hear something, let us know. I mean, you guys, this is your team and your site. We're just happily carrying out the duties.
Yes, sir. But for Josh Webb, I am Scott W. Johnston. We will see you when we see everybody, and keep on riding that wave.